As we've heard, two of the main issues that seem to be shaping India's election this time are economics and religion. To discuss these and other factors separating the parties, we're drawing on the experience of journalist Bharat Bhushan. He's South Asia editor for 360 Info and a veteran of many Indian elections. Bharat, good to have you with us. Let me start by asking, are you one of those who believes, as many do, that this is pretty much in the bag for Narendra Modi, that his third term is pretty much now guaranteed in this election?
No, I'm not one of those. Although this election began as a one-horse race, I think the election has turned, and Modi is in a tough spot. And that this is evident from the way he's been struggling to find a national narrative for his election campaign. He claims to be a man of development and promises a developed nation. However, his election campaign has been about anything but development or about economic issues. Although he began by talking about Modi's guarantees, he personalizes everything. Government policies are sort of his policies, and everything is about his persona. So he began by talking about Modi's guarantees for welfare, Modi's guarantees for women, Modi's guarantees for youth, etc. But he quickly gave that up in favor of what works best for his political party, the Bharatiya Janata Party, which is a Hindu majoritarian party. And what works best for them is communal polarization, polarizing people along religious lines. So after the first phase of polling, he began attacking Muslims. And he started describing India's Muslim population as infiltrators, as if they had come from some other country. And he referred to them as people who produce 4 children. So basically using hate speech against Muslims became his campaign narrative. Then later on, when he found even that was not working, then he started targeting Pakistan. Then he started saying that because a Pakistani minister had tweeted in praise of Rahul Gandhi's campaign, he said the opposition parties have supported Pakistan. No, making Pakistan an issue in Indian election is foolish because there's been no terrorist attack, there's been no war with Pakistan. Pakistan is in a mess of its own. So again, Pakistan is a shorthand for targeting Indian Muslims as if they are Pakistan supporters. Yeah. So his desperation is evident. Even if he's doing well, he doesn't give the impression of doing well. He gives the impression of a man desperately looking for a narrative that will mobilize the floating voters. And if not the floating voters, at least it will ginger up his own support base of Hindu majoritarian population.
What do you think about this term, the cult of Modi, where he's put himself very much at the center of it, as you've indicated?
Well, this election and the previous election and the one before that has always been about Modi. Modi is all about himself, and he is the candidate. The individual candidates in the 543 parliamentary constituencies don't matter because he campaigns for every election. Not only in parliament, he's the candidate in the states, he's the candidate of the party in municipal elections. It's all about himself. Now, he's deliberately built this cult around himself, which most authoritarian leaders do. However, this time around, it doesn't seem to be working. There is no Modi wave. People are not in a frenzy as they were in 2014 and in 2019. There's no frenzy about Modi. In fact, it's the apathy of the Hindu voters that is really disturbing him. Because Muslims and minorities, Christians, Adivasis, that is the tribals, they've all gone and voted in large numbers. If their names were on the voters list, they've gone and voted. It's the Hindu voter he's worried about. And there his cult of personality is no longer working. And that's because of the economic crisis that poor Indians find themselves in. There are about 12 million youngsters who join the labor force every year. Unemployment is very high. It was record high last year at 44.5% for youngsters.
But if the BJP's led alliance is not going to get quite the voting that you think it is, where will the votes go? Who's the real threat for Narendra Modi?
The real threat for Narendra Modi is the opposition. And so Modi's attempt has always been to say, if not me, who? So he wants to make it into a presidential election without wanting presidential debates, without ever giving a press conference or being accountable. Modi's main opposition comes from the alliance called India, which is a bloc of all the opposition parties, Indian National Democratic Inclusive Alliance.
Right.
So the acronym India. And what is interesting this time around is that in most states, except for two states, that is Punjab and West Bengal, the opposition parties are giving him a one-to-one contest. There are minor candidates, of course, but everywhere they are giving him one-to-one contest, which means that the regional parties, which are the real challengers to the BJP, are concentrating their resources only in winnable constituencies and leaving the other constituencies to their other partners. So this allows them to consolidate their manpower. This also allows them to consolidate and better spend their financial resources. And of course, it allows them to better challenge the ruling BJP.
Now,
so this is his main problem.
Now, India, that alliance you mentioned, INDIA, is Congress-led, isn't it? So is it a comeback for Congress?
Who the leader of that alliance would be after the elections will be determined by the elected MPs or these parties when they sit together. So Congress is not, in effect, leading the alliance. By that, I mean, it's not automatic that if the India bloc gets a majority, then Rahul Gandhi or a congressman would be the prime minister. That's not a given. Okay. And I'm not even saying that is happening. We don't know how the election results will go. All one can say is that there's a decline of Modi and the BJP, and this is because of the opposition coming together, one. Two, people getting sick and tired of the communal rhetoric. People, being fed up with the economic crisis. So livelihood issues, unemployment, farm crisis. These are the issues that are a big challenge for Modi.
So our voters in India, Bharat, are they becoming much more savvy and kind of wary of political promises?
I would not draw that conclusion so definitively because elections are still a very, very sort of emotive event. And Modi has played on these emotions very well. In 2014, he promised a Gujarat model of development and said he would bring back black money and distribute it to people in India. Etc., etc. And people thought he was really going to do that. In 2019, there was a terrorist strike in Jammu and Kashmir where 40 Indian paramilitary soldiers were killed in a bomb blast, which destroyed part of their convoy, which was traveling by road. And this was apparently done by Pakistan. So there was a Air Force strike on Balakot, a part of Pakistan where they claimed there were terrorist camps. And national security became the emotive issue which organized people around Modi. This time around, there is no such emotive issue. Ram Temple, which was built at the site of the destroyed Babri Masjid, which was built apparently by Aurangzeb in medieval times, he thought construction of the Ram Temple and its inauguration on 22nd January this year would be an election issue. But unfortunately, it hasn't really caught the imagination of the people because people are heard saying that a temple is not going to give us jobs. So there is no emotive issue, no national narrative, no Modi wave. So these are the things. These are the things that are pulling Modi down. So I foresee a decline in Modi's performance. But what the real result would be, we'll know only on June 4th.
Well, one of the things that Narendra Modi's government is criticized is for essentially oppressing journalistic freedoms. And I'm wondering, you as a journalist, a veteran journalist, who is quite open in your criticism about the Prime Minister, how much it has affected journalists' work and yours in particular?
It affects the journalists in the sense that journalists who are critical of the government cannot get jobs. You only have to look at national television and the national media. They are totally uncritical of Modi. Whether they are doing this voluntarily or whether they're doing under pressure depends on your perspective. My understanding is that they're too eager to please the powers that be. This is partly because a lot of media owners have other businesses as well. They want to protect those businesses. If you take even print media, nearly 45% of their ad revenue comes from government ads. So they're dependent on government for revenue. They organize events where they raise money through advertisement sponsorships where the Prime Minister himself goes and his ministers go. So that's another source of revenue. So they don't want to kick their source of revenue. They don't want to block their source of revenue. That is one. I'm also told that there have been cases where editors have been sacked for taking critical views. So media has been under pressure. This Modi has been one of the most unaccountable prime ministers as far as the media is concerned. He hates media interactions unless they are orchestrated and staged by him. So before elections, now he's given about 45 interviews. Now these interviews take place in a studio in Prime Minister's office. But then they're edited by PMO and then given to newspapers.
No, but then, Bharat, what about the impact of social media? People in India are savvy. They have phones. They have a lot more access to social media than ever before. Isn't that having some sort of counter impact to the alleged government control of media?
Yes, it is indeed. The only free media exists on the margins. And one of those margins is the social media. It exists on YouTube. It exists on Twitter, it exists on Facebook, Instagram, etc. But the mainstream media is a complete goner in India.
It sounds also that if the regions and the opposition is managing to stage a successful counter to the government and the BJP party's coalition, it sounds like the allegations of oppression of the opposition candidates is not as effective as people claim.
Well, it is effective because you have a deputy chief minister of Delhi and a former minister still in jail. You have the chief minister of Jharkhand, Hemant Soren, still in jail. You have opposition leader Kavita, the daughter of the former chief minister of Telangana, still in jail. The Delhi chief minister was in jail and had to move the Supreme Court, which gave him a reprieve of 3 to 4 weeks. So that he could campaign. He'll go back to jail on June 2nd after the last phase of polls. Now, it's not only putting people in jail. This government has used the investigative agencies of the finance ministry, like the enforcement directorate, the income tax department, then the Central Bureau of Investigation, to harass opposition politicians. Not only to harass, but often to break them away from their parent parties and get them to join the BJP. So, in fact, although Mr. Modi says that he is against corruption and he will not spare the corrupt, a lot of the corrupt politicians have been wooed by his party and are today in the Bharatiya Janata Party. So, what Modi has also done, or is believed to have done, is to have frozen the accounts of the Congress party using some income tax cases. So, you deprive the opposition of their prime campaigners, you deprive them of finance, you harass them through government agencies, and then you say the opposition is thriving and Indian democracy is thriving. I don't think that's the case.
Okay, let me ask you about, propaganda and disinformation, misinformation, generally across the political spectrum can be widespread, especially when it comes to election time. I'm wondering if in India, a place which is known for being tech savvy, the young generation especially, whether or not AI has had any bearing on how people are getting their information and how much veracity there is in that information.
So there is a lot of disinformation and misinformation. A lot of it comes from the ruling party itself. I don't know whether you've seen a video of our Home Minister Amit Shah giving a speech about saying that they lied about a particular event, which was a blatant lie. He said, then he laughs with a nudge and a wink, say, you shouldn't do it, but it was effective. So, in effect, suggesting that disinformation and misinformation is fair game in Indian democracy. Now, to counter this, there have been fact-checking sites, but all fact-checking takes place after the event, after a lot of damage is already done. AI and deepfakes are also being used in this election, but I won't say that it's become a huge problem. AI has not become a huge problem. Misinformation and deliberate disinformation has.
I came to cover the elections in India almost a quarter of a century ago, and I remember then the huge ballot papers that had all the symbols of the parties on them to help the illiterate segment, the large illiterate segment of the population, be able to vote because they could identify their parties by the symbols. How much has that changed with the growth in mobile technology, where even the poorest people have now something in their hand when it comes to a device, and the way they're able to access information? Has that had a major impact on the Indian population?
I should think so, because internet penetration in India is huge. Data is cheap. So social media is being used not only for transmitting information, but also disinformation and misinformation. So people are getting a dose of both good news as well as doctored news. As far as elections and ballot papers are concerned, now elections are held through the electronic voting machine, which has a symbol and the name of the candidate, and you press the button and vote. But there are those who cast doubts about the electronic voting machines also, and they believe in conspiracies that these electronic voting machines are being manipulated, but nobody has been able to prove just exactly how they are manipulated. Even in this election, there's already talk of EVMs being manipulated, but again, nobody has been able to show how this is done. So I would discount any manipulation of electronic voting machines without any evidence being presented.
So, Bharat, one thing for those watching outside India, Narendra Modi has become this kind of cult figure outside as well, and very popular. And I wonder how international policies might be affected, say he doesn't return to power. Whoever takes over will have to also take over that mantle. And I wonder how foreign policies might change and how India's perception might change.
Our policy towards our neighborhood will certainly change, especially Pakistan. Our relationship with Pakistan has never been as bad as it has been under Prime Minister Modi. We have no high commissioners in each other's countries. The diplomatic staff has been cut down to less than 50%. The visa regime is in a mess. There is no trade taking place. I think if he were to go, things would certainly improve in the neighborhood immediately. And let's hope that the next Prime Minister, if it is not Modi, is somebody who is not as two-faced about his persona as Prime Minister Modi is, because he has one persona for the West, where he likes to be seen as a great statesman striding the international stage. And at home, he is a communal bigot who uses hate speech to win elections. So he's Janus-faced. But let's hope the next person is not. And I think as far as our relationship with the US, Europe and West Asia is concerned, I think things will continue.
But just a final thought. Of course, things are volatile in India, as you've described, and the communal separations and divisions. Is this election going to go through peacefully?
It has been going through peacefully up to now. The question is what happens on June 4th when the votes are counted. Most people think that Prime Minister Modi may still be in a position to form a government, a coalition government, or he will not get 303 seats as he had in the last parliament. He might come down and still have a majority. There are others who say that he will not have a majority. So there are different scenarios there. But should he fall below, let's say, 220 or 230 and is unable to form a government, there could be some violence. There could be some tensions as the BJP tries to break other political parties to get the requisite number of 272 to get a majority.
Well, Bharat Bhushan will obviously be following the election. Thank you so much for giving us the time for your perspective.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.